I've done Voight before. Let me have a look. So we did our, with Voight, we had our 5 waves. We're in some kind of correction now. When I did this analysis, I said I thought maybe this was a little bit early, but I was bullish because we'd come above this previous level. So in my previous video, if you watched it, I said that flipping this into support was important, and there was a easy trade here because you had an invalidation, and then zooming in, it was an easy trade to be had there. I didn't take the trades, but I think I said that this was still quite early to impulse up. And the way that we'll know the correction is over is if we get above this high here and we flip it into support. So I came up with some ideas of what I would expect, probably continuation. Get rid of this now. Get rid of all of these. So just looking at these, this correction here, I mean, it is possible that we're forming something like this, and I think I did explain this in my previous video. Some kind of XYZ, sorry, WXY. And so that would consist of 3 ABC corrections. So ABC, ABC, and possibly we're into another ABC now. That would be A, B, possibly a C. To complete our correction. That's kind of what I'm still thinking. In my previous video, I said that the correction might still be a little bit early, because whether this was going to impulse now or whether we're still correcting, I thought it was a little bit early before, and looking at the price action now, this could now be forming another ABC. And if it forms an ABC, then that could be completing our XY correction, and that would be the end potentially of the corrective move. So I'm still thinking that we might be in the last stage of a correction. Now this could end anywhere. No one really knows. Could this end down here? Yeah, it could. Anything can happen with the way the price corrects. No one can really predict how the price will move. But I did think that this was a little bit early to suddenly impulse out, even though there was a long trade on the table, which I identified. I didn't take the trade, but I think most people would have taken profit on that trade, because that would have been a trade, not, I wasn't contemplating investing, I was contemplating trading. If you're investing, then you're just accumulating the dips. You're just buying the dips. If you're trading, it's different, very different to investing. So when I contemplate or when I present trade plans, it's just trading. I'm just thinking trading. So by now, most people would have taken profit, just simply because the price from the original entry price, the price moved 27%. You would have taken profit off that. And if you were trading, you would have taken profit, and this would have been now a risk-free trade, probably set at break even. But if you're investing, then you are probably looking possibly for one final correction, possibly. And no one can predict this. If it was to go back to the golden pocket, then it could possibly come down all the way down to here. That's possible. That would be underneath the launch price, so it wouldn't look bullish, but it's corrective. That's all this is. It's just corrective price action. And if I take it, let me just get rid of these Elliott waves now. Hold on. Get rid of all of that. Where's this lower one? Get rid of that. And so let's just focus on this corrective move now. So from there to there. Let's just have a look at the fibs and see how it behaved. So it came all the way into the 886. What does that mean? Well, it does mean that the 886 is in play, because if the price can move to the 886 in reverse, just bear in mind that it is possible that this also, on the way back down up to there, it could possibly come back down to the 886 here as well. Yeah, just to replicate the behavior that I'm seeing. If from this high here, this pivot high down to the low, it corrected all the way up to the 886. If we are correcting and we are forming an ABC, an ABC, and another ABC, then it is possible to come all the way back down to the 886 to get people bearish one last time before you get some kind of price explosion, which is what you want. But both scenarios are bullish. It's just about targets that change. Targets will always change if you have a flat correction or if you have a deeper correction. Both are bullish, but it's just about the targets. If we are able to correct and hold the launch price, wherever the launch price was again, where did I have the markings? So I delete it. There it is. It's there. You see the launch price? I've got it written there. So if this was to come into the launch price, it's potentially more bullish, just simply because you have a really flat final correction before you're looking to impulse out, and it would be another back test of some kind of support and resistance flip. If I go to the 3-day chart, you can't see the launch price here because this chart doesn't have all the data, but I marked it out. So there is some kind of support and resistance going on with this launch price. You can see it clearly. So naturally, you are thinking that this will hold as support. That's what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, we've back tested it. Maybe we're going to have one more test, you know, and maybe now we're just consolidating in this higher range, and maybe we're looking for one more leg of the correction, which would complete this WXY, which is basically a completion of 3 back-to-back ABC corrections. Yeah, and that's on the back of this five wave move in the first instance, which is there. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you go into this WXY type correction. If it extends, then you could be forming a much more extended A, B, C, D, E correction as well. So that's also possible. So there's a couple of potential possibilities here that could play out. Let me just get rid of these fib lines again. So if we are looking at a more of an extended correction, it is possible to be forming some kind of, I don't know, let me just draw it a bit better. So there's a lot of possibilities. That's the point that I'm making. You can't just say, well, this is it. This is it. You can't do that. So if we're thinking now that, so there's a few things going on. Could we be finishing the Y to go up? And that would be the completion of the WXY to complete this correction, and then now the next move would be some kind of impulsive out. And you almost, like I said before, you can only really see if we're impulsing as soon as you take this pivot high at the top here. Once you take it, then you're like, okay, then you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe now the correction's over, because now we're looking for continuation as long as we hold that high as a support. Or potentially you're thinking, well, maybe we are actually going to go and form something more like this, some kind of more extended correction like that, and then you're just looking for the correction to last a little bit longer, and then you could be forming something else. And the other thing that I had in mind was potentially like this, an A, B, C, D, E, like a pennant really, but like a more extended pennant. And so I can't tell you how it's going to behave. I can't tell you that. Can't predict that. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. I think both situations are in play at the moment in terms of a correction. And obviously the other idea that could happen is a much deeper correction. So this is actually much deeper, and you're forming some kind of one-to-one corrective move. So you're actually going like this, like an A, like there, like that. A much more symmetrical AB, and that's a harmonic also. It's like an ABCD pattern, so it's A, B, C, D. It's like this. It's like a weird diamond, but it's quite balanced in the way it forms. And that would be a swing failure of these lows here, and that'd be a very easy way to trade that. If that was to form, if you were to form an A, B, C, D, then this is a really easy trade, because you're just basically taking the swing failure and then you have your invalidation. As soon as you get a swing failure, of this level here, you would take the long and you have your invalidation, and maybe that would be the corrective phase is over because you've just done an ABC, but it's not an ABC, it's a X, it's a WXY, because you've created an ABC, an ABC, and maybe an AB, and maybe you have a prolonged C, and we have to just see how that plays out. Does that go flat and just hold the launch price to go up? Does that go deeper and then actually you're forming more of an ABCDE to do that? Or does that overextend to the downside, take out the low here to swing failure, and then you have a nice long entry? So there's a few things going on with Vaiot right now, actually, and no one knows what's going to happen. No one can predict that. I can't predict that. I can't predict if and when this is going to go up, but I do see that we're in some kind of corrective pattern, and there are some options. And I think there was a long trade to be had when we were here, when we back tested this launch price, because we had an invalidation. Once you had your invalidation, you also had a little bit of a swing failure of these lows here. A nice back test on this candle. There was a trade to be had, okay? But does it mean it's going to break out? No, no one can predict the breakout. And if we are trying to continue correcting, then this would be the next direction of travel is downwards to find support again, to correct into some kind of support where the price is finally exhausted on the way down. And we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. I find it very difficult to imagine that all the way to September we're going to come down to here, because that's to complete this ABCD, this kind of diamond shape. It needs to be quite balanced and quite equally shaped, and so that means the D would land somewhere in September, and so that's kind of weird, huh? I don't really expect that, but I'm just kind of like sharing what could happen, like who knows, but I don't necessarily expect that. So even though that would be a really amazing long trade with a great entry, I'm not necessarily expecting that. It's an extremely low probability. And so let me just hide that idea. Let's see which was the brush stroke. I just want to just put that into its own little. I don't really expect that. So long incept. That's a long incept. What was the last brush stroke that I had? Probably that one. Nope. So let me just chuck that in there. So we'll just keep that. And so that's pretty prolonged correction. Maybe if we were to come down and form a D here, I don't know where that D would form. If it was a DE, like an ABCDE, may, like who knows. And I was thinking, I mean, I had it originally at a deep correction, but if it just came back to the golden pocket, you'd be looking something like this, which would be a little bit more bullish, but I prefer the equal triangles. But let's, and then this would be very different as well. This whole thing would be different. So it all depends on what happens now. My favored correction, and it all depends on Bitcoin. It all depends on Bitcoin. Everything depends on Bitcoin. But my favored correction right now, looking at the price action, is like a flat correction. So I'll just keep that there. But my favored correction, let's just see. Let's just go back to what I originally thought. That would be a really deep correction to form an A, B, C, D, and E back into like the 50% area. my favorite correction would be just some kind of really flat last leg here, just to coincide with Bitcoin. Like I am thinking about Bitcoin. I'm thinking about the halving as well. So whether we start to pull back now and just correct down back into the launch price for one more kind of test, or whether we go deeper, it all depends on Bitcoin. And then you have your different ideas of how this could correct. I did think it was a little bit early to break out, but maybe we have a really flat correction or a really shallow correction now to potentially break out, or if we have a deeper correction. But you basically have to look at where the price finds support and then see what kind of corrective pattern it's forming at the time. Get rid of that triangle. That brush is fine. Let me have a look at the timings now, just quickly. Get fib time here. This is on the 3-day chart. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, if you were to do it based on fib time, you know, you're looking from there to there, from A to B to C. You're looking the 618 is sometime in May, end of May. I'm not sure. It'd have to be deeper. Let me do something else. Do I have another chart on Voight? No. Okay. So I'll just have this. It's quite a long correction, huh, for such an initial impulsive up. It's quite a long correction. Let me try something else. Nothing. I mean, this could possibly be forming. You could possibly correct down to here, go up to here, and then yeah, who knows. This, I think the timings are a bit weird, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the timings. But if this was to form just the simple what I had in the first instance, it's your 1-to-1 there. That's your 1-to-1. This is your 1-to-1. Maybe the 1-to-1 actually comes to here, to June. Just to balance out this correction, you know. So from here to here, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure actually. Potentially down to here. That's your 1-to-1. 618, 1-to-1. Because the thing about these corrections, they kind of have to be a bit more balanced. You can't just, they're not random. And it's just trying to figure out the movement. So if you had like a down to there, sharp up, and then another down to there, that's like a 1-to-1 there, and then up to the 618, and then maybe just down to there, which would be April. And then it makes more sense because you're kind of going in time with fib time, and then these kind of waves look more balanced in the way they form. So we have to see how this one plays out. Does it go deep? Or does it go flat? No one can predict that. Can't tell. Be nice to see though. And then potentially you're looking for the correction to be over. And I think everyone is going to shed a sigh of relief the minute the price gets back up above that previous high, finds support to continue. And I think once that happens, the correction is over. Then you know the correction is over. And then what you can do is, depending on where it ends, where the correction ends, that will be your 2. And then you could do some sort of fib, trend-based fib extension where the correction ends. Let's just say it ends at the launch price. Then you've got some higher targets. Then if you have a 1-to-1, if you have a 1-to-1 here, from there to there, that if it ends there, then your 1-to-1 will be up to there, the 7. But if you're going deeper on the 2, and your 2 correction, wherever the 2 correction ends, let's say just say it ends here, then actually you're going your 1-to-1 target on the 1 to the 2 to the 3, the 1 to the 2 to the 3, the 1-to-1 would be back here. Yeah, and that's how you can kind of calculate your trend-based fib extent targets. And then usually the 3 is an extended one, but it doesn't have to be. We just have to see how it expands. If it's extended, then you could be looking at higher targets, the 1.272 or the what between the 1.414, and then overextended is 1.618. But it will depend on where the 2 finally corrects, and also to know or to see how whether the 3 is extended or whether the 5 is extended. And so usually with Elliott waves, one of the impulsive moves is the extended move. So it's either the 1 or it's either the 3 or it's either the 5. So if you have like 2 non-impulsive 1s and 3s, then you might get a really extended 5. If that's all it is, and then you just have another 5, then you could get a really extended 5. Yeah, the caveat is that the 5, the 3 can't be the shortest expansion. The 3 cannot be the shortest expansion. So whatever the 3 is will determine what the 5 is. The 5 is bigger than the 1, and if the 3 is bigger than the 1, then the 5 can be bigger. If the 3 is shorter than the 1, then the 5 has to be shorter. So these are the conditions for the way the Elliott waves behave, and we just don't know in advance how it's going to behave. It's basically you have to let it happen, and then you can calculate where it could potentially go, right? So I still think we're possibly still in some kind of correctiveness here, and probably making the fight in the first instance. I'm thinking making the last corrective move before it finds support somewhere, and then once it finds support, that's where you're going to get the diminishment of the sellers, and then that's when you're going to get the buyers start to pick up the token on top of support to push it up further. And then the big sigh of relief is going to be reclaiming that and flipping that high into support. That's the signal. Once you have that, you can, there's an easy breakout long there with an easy invalidation. That's your breakout long effectively. You have a little invalidation, which is for the price to fall back underneath. You wouldn't want the price to fall back underneath that level once you break that level and make a new high. Then you'd be expecting some kind of impulse. If it doesn't happen, it just means the correction isn't over. Like, no one can predict that. If we do somehow get above this high and fall back underneath it, then you just have to reevaluate the corrective waves to see if it extends or not, if it continues or not. Yeah, and it could, you know, like the correction, we don't really know how long the correction is going to last. There is a correction in play. If I was to do a volume pool, the best place to buy at the moment in terms of volume will probably be much lower down, and it actually would be to take out these lows here. So as a trader, if I was just thinking if I just put my trading hat on, then get rid of these and that one. I don't want to keep that one. Let's hide these. Then actually this long in September would be the best trade. Literally this would be the best trade. A little fake out back into the volume area, swing failure these lows here, get back above these lows, back over the volume area. You have a really amazing trade here because you have a really easy invalidation, really easy invalidation. Wherever this low is, and if you entered late, you'd have another easy you'd have lots of easy validations if the price was to do this, yeah, was to form this kind of pattern. You just have to bear in mind though that your take profit would be these highs, because now you're forming some kind of bearish harmonic. If that was to happen, you'd be forming some kind of bearish harmonic here. So you just have to bear these things in mind. But this is really unlikely because it's be putting it into September. But you know, never anything can happen in crypto. No one can predict the future. At the moment, it's still looking good because we haven't lost support levels. So until you lose support levels, this is just a possible, it's like another alternative universe. Like, who knows, like in another universe this is happening, but right now it's not likely, just simply because we're on support. When you're on support, you're not thinking about lower prices. We still have to lose this level here. All right, I hope that helped. Little VAI update. No problem, John.